Hey, welcome to the Hired AV podcast. My name is Joe Way, and I am your host. And we have a good one for you today. Flashback, flash forward, flash something. We don't know. We're from episode 30. We have our guest returning because this is episode 2 of our 5-part HETMA Turns 5 series. And HETMA was, if you all remember back, 20 episodes earlier, that BC and I had the idea of starting this organization, and we announced it publicly with Mr. Chris Neto and Mark Coxon on episode 30 of the Hired AV podcast, where we really didn't even know how to explain this organization. It was just an idea. So we have to come full circle now that we're 5 years old, and we can look at what this has turned into, and bring our guests back on. So at first, let's start with BC is here. If you're not watching the video, BC, introduce yourself, tell people who you are, what you do.
All right. My name is BC Hatchett. I'm the Associate Director for Classroom Technology at Vanderbilt University. I'm also the HETMA co-founder with Joe and the board member emeriti.
Yeah, I can't wait till I have that title. I'm out 3 months, and this thing turns its own reins over, or, runs itself. Thank you, BC. And Mr. Chris Neto, please tell people who you are and what you do.
How you doing? My name is Chris Neto. I am the Market Development Manager at Starin. I do a lot of things on the distribution side. You probably know me more for the stuff I do online. But I thank you that we are going to enter this like time travel point. Well, this is like the multiverse, and me and Tony Stark here. We're going to make sure that we're going to, come in and we're going to remind you of what you said and what you said it would become. And here we are 5 years later. We're trying to fix things that went wrong. So don't mind us if we're interjecting new points of view.
Oh no, it's quite all right. We'll get into what we did right and what we did wrong, and we'll get to that. But before we get to there, Mr. Mark Coxon, please tell people who you are and what you do.
Mark Coxon. I'm the Director of Business Development at AVISPL's XTG Group. We're Experience Technology Group. Super happy to be here. When you said flashback, flash forward, I think the only correct answer, Joe, is flash dance.
Flash dance. All right. Oh, now I feel like I have to find music or something, and we can do a dance party.
Leg warmers.
Oh, leg warmers.
HETMA leg warmers. That's all I'm saying.
I do a mean Chris Farley in the gas station.
Don't give us any Infocom swag ideas with HETMA leg warmers.
Yeah, we'll fire right on that. We are very swag heavy.
Love it.
That would be a good one. We have some ideas that something that along those lines.
In Vegas.
Oh yeah, in June. Maybe that would. Let's see how long that would last. But usually it's cold inside the rooms. So, all right. So let's start. We going back. Obviously, we have to go. We're going back full 3 years. 5 years. Some initial thoughts. I know we probably all should have listened to the episode ahead of time, but we didn't. So, can you go back and Mark? I'll start with you on this one. When you first heard about this idea and we kind of got together and had the conversations, we were really talking about kind of what the possibilities of why a higher ed group could be helpful for our vertical. So talk a little bit about, kind of back there, and where have you seen the organization like bring value to even just your company, but or the AV industry as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we remember right, 5 years ago, there was this big conversation around whether or not end users should be at Infocom in general, right? Like, if you were the manager of technology at a business or a higher education, institution, should you be in these industry insider shows? And there was a lot of talk about that at the time, whether or not you had to be an integrator or a manufacturer, or whether end users should be a large contingent of that show. And I think what we've seen is, the push of HETMA was really around how do we create a professional association of these end users that have common goals, common platforms, common challenges out in the space. And then how do we get them more access to information? Because I think really what, if I remember correctly, really what part of the push is that there was this kind of gatekeeping of information, right? And you had to go through an integrator like myself. Integrators are great. We're not necessarily evil, Joe. We are value added
I love you.
resources.
I have changed my mind. No longer, yes. I might take back a tweet or two. I'll take back
There
a
you go.
tweet or two.
But I mean, all joking aside, it became a bottleneck of information, right? And you're trying to plan these large scale infrastructure projects like you took on at USC, to turn things into video over IP or do some other things on campus with digital signage or student communication, or even now today, what is a connected campus, and why do people choose to come to an in-person experience at college versus just doing a fully online experience and getting credits, but maybe not getting that college life experience? And what does that look like from a technology standpoint? And I think you guys were really ahead of the curve on trying to figure out how we create a professional organization that gets us more access to information, allows us to leverage our buying power as an organization with manufacturers who decide to share information, right? And be able to actually provide a way for them to get more business as well. And then how do we connect that into our integration partners who we need to help us scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
And talk about full circle. Guess who just got hired on our SLED team, Joe, at ABISPL? Jimmy Singleton.
Jimmy Singleton.
Picked up Jimmy Singleton, who used to work for you. So when we talk about this kind of flow of people, higher education has picked up a lot of AV professionals, and integrators have started picking up, people from the higher education professional space to come and help us plan how we best support companies and groups like you as well. So I think the synergy has been great. I wouldn't have predicted it got as big as it did in 5 years. So kudos to you and BC for making that happen. But I think it's been going really well for you guys.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's interesting to bring that full circle, right? Because that shows how as you had the right word, synergy across the channels, right? Up and down the channel. It's so important that we can learn and grow with one another, right? Yes, my initial thoughts of necessary evils maybe wasn't necessarily correct, but I think reason, again, going back to tweets like that, was, there's a little bit of a shock value, right? In order to get seen and make people have to pay attention. But I think with that, it actually shows that, hey, we are better when we have come together and work together, because you bring so much value to us. And we hope that equally, by sharing having those real relationships and sharing our concerns, we get better service. You also know exactly what to sell us, right? And how you can best benefit us. That only makes us all better. Right. So
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
No, I love that. So Chris, same question to you now. All right. We're 5 years in, what were the things, how have you seen this organization either benefit the industry or, and vice versa? I mean, kind of along that same line.
Well, first we got to set the stage. Some of the things that you did not go into the conversation about, maybe on this, definitely not on this episode, but previous episodes, is where was the technology manager at a trade show, right? And you both, everybody on this call knows at one point I did my time on site with pharmaceutical companies. So I was a tech manager, and I get it. It was a tough conversation to have at Infocom when you had technology manager. Yes, ultimately you're an end user, but there was an invisible force field around booths that said, you can come, but you're not, we don't know how to talk to you. It was a translation wall, to be honest with you. They didn't know how to talk because the conversations between a manufacturer and an integrator are very, very structured. How many points, when they take delivery, where's the project, how many days out, 30, 60, 90. That's all wonderful. It means nothing to an end user who wants to find out more about your products. So one of the things that has changed over the years is the acceptance of a technology manager at a trade show. That was going to happen whether HETMA became HETMA or not. As more technology managers appeared at the trade show, it was inevitable, right? Yep. This is something that was fueling this behind you guys, right? Was that more and more, I'm a former manufacturer. As a former manufacturer, we look through our badge scans. Oh my God, how many end users are at here, right? At some point, it's like, wow, there's more end users than integrators, right? Consultants are being accepted. The funny thing is that if manufacturers looked at technology managers the same way they do consultants, life would be easy, because it's the same concept. You need to show them product. You need to make your product top of mind, because then those technology managers are now this new age specifiers, right, for the product. And on top of that, you're also the service. Now, I too had weird concerns with your, in-house integrator title, because I knew what that was going to do, and I knew what that was going to spark. But I also know Joe Way and Joe Way's way of doing things. So yes, you were literally just putting kindling, on something that was already there, and unfortunately somebody gave you a match, and you can't help yourself, right? So watching that happen, I knew where it was going, and it was, yes, let's create a forest fire, controlled fire, and let's see where it goes. Unfortunately, people saw that as an out of control fire, people jumping in to take it down without realizing we got your attention, and that's what we wanted. So I knew where you were going with this, and it was inevitable that it was going to happen, Joe. There has been end user organizations before, but a focused end user organization that not only focused on the technology manager specifically, but then on top of that, education, and then add another layer of, and we want open communications with manufacturers because you're not listening. So that three, components of HETMA is what made it different, because there are end user organizations that have existed prior to, but their relationships with the manufacturers did not work the same way as you guys were envisioning it. And here we go, fast forward 5 years later. You have major voices heard. Manufacturers are listening to what you say we need, which is all you ever wanted. It wasn't very hard. If you're going to build a camera, make sure it works in a classroom, not just in a boardroom. If you're going to build a sound system, make sure that it works in tune with 50 people that could be sitting in various places, as opposed to a structured circular table or oval-shaped table in a conference room, because that's where we were at. We were designing, as manufacturers, we were designing things specifically for a specific dream, right? It's that ivory tower conversation. And we were making those ivory tower products fit into those spaces, and it wasn't a natural fit, but we had to make it work. Again, pushing our limits as wizards and magicians of how we can make things happen. That's what Mark specializes in now. Mark's a full-blown, he's not a muggle anymore. This guy's
full wizard.
Full wizard. He's reached Gandalf stage, right? He's Mark the Gray. So what we're at now is that's your fingerprint on the industry. And it, not to say that it didn't happen before, but what it's definitely apparent is that it's never going to be the same, and it's not going to be put back in the bottle afterwards. Yeah. Because even if HETMA was a 1 year and done thing, sometimes, and this is something I can appreciate, sometimes that movement was just to break down a wall that needed to be broken down.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. The fact that it continued 5 years later, awesome. But if it had failed after year one, but it knocked that barrier down, then
you could have just opened the door for others. Yeah.
Yes. You could walk away with a smile on your face that you did something that helped somebody else push through. And that's the hardest part of our industry, because we're so ingrained in that's not what we used to do. That's not how we do things. And this is how we've always done it, which is, to me, the worst. Like, that should be in everybody's, like, enter, do not say these words when you walk into this building of my company. This is how we used to do things. This is how we've always done it, because that is a killer. And you guys didn't do that. So kudos.
Chris, that makes me want to ask Chris and Buddy question, because, you said that, if this had failed, like if HETMA hadn't had legs, maybe it lasted a year or 2 years, but it broke down this barrier. Did that help take some of the pressure off for you two? That you knew that no matter how long this lasted, there was going to be some value in the initiative. Was that part of kind of like the motivation to be able to design something like this? And
BC, I'll let you take it. I have thoughts, but
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark, a lot of it too is like we were in some respects kind of making up as we went along. Like we knew what we wanted. We knew kind of what our end goal was 5 years ago. Like granted, HETMA has grown leaps and bounds beyond what we originally envisioned the organization doing. But kind of what you all were describing is one of the main reasons that we started this, was that there was that kind of invisible barrier between manufacturers and large integration companies and the technology managers. I mean, we saw, I guess Joe, I can call it like a proof of concept on that one trip that we took. We were like, hey, this is something we could have an appreciable impact. And if HETMA, like you said, if HETMA had folded after a year or two, but we knew that we had at least got the conversation started, brought down that shield, and we're having an appreciable impact on the industry, not only the higher ed vertical, but the industry as a whole, I think we would have looked back and had very fond memories of what we did, and we would have maybe looked for other opportunities to continue to spread. But yeah, I think we would have probably considered that a success and moved on.
Yeah, I would echo that, and it's interesting because one of the words that BC and I say this all the time: we're slow rolling, and at some point we're like, we got to stop saying that because this thing is taking on a life of its own.
No,
I
think
think
it just rolled over us is when.
Yeah. So, and I think that was it, right? It was one of those going, okay, we know there's something here, but we don't know what it will be, and that's why we were trying to, So a little fun fact: we've actually recorded the episode that comes after this one already. But we that has the board and chairs, and it took us an entire episode to even name all the initiatives that we have. Wow. Right. And that is one of the things, but it all came because of, needs of our members, and it came because of needs of the industry and ways we can partner and have programs together, like the approved program for manufacturers, right? And our advisory councils to be able to work with you all and have the and get those solutions delivered to us. And so I think when there was a point where we could have stopped and stepped away, but it's like almost like it wouldn't let us, no matter how much it was a definition of the AV industry. It doesn't matter how hard you try to get away, it's going to pull you right back in. And this organization was that way too, which is really interesting because my thoughts listening to you, and you both brought up you were around and you were both at different parts of the channels before end users were really, really accepted into the show. Is like how we can now have that. We go back and now we have our own booth, right? The first end users to throw a booth on the Infocom floor, the same place that 5 years earlier there was conversations about whether we should actually be there. And then we have manufacturers and our integrator partners and all those bringing their customers to our booth saying, here's your people, you need to get to know them. And then here's everything that we get those benefits. It's like, well, that's a flip of a coin, which means that it was needed, even if we didn't know how to do it at that time. There was obviously something that was needed.
I love that too, because it's that thing that I think we all struggle with, right? Like we want the perfect solution to how to solve the problem, and without that, we just decide not to take a step. And I think one of the things I loved about it is you guys didn't know if it was the perfect solution or not. But you knew somebody had to try something, and why not us, right? Like if not me, who, right? Like that age old question. And I love that you guys put yourself out there. It was kind of in the face of a little bit of a current, going upstream a little bit at the time in that conversation, and it's really cool. And it, like you said, I think some of the things that were different when Chris was saying you brought 3 or 4 things together that other groups haven't. I've participated in some of the other end user groups, and they're really great for maybe peer knowledge sharing, but maybe they don't bring and they bring manufacturers in to pay for their events, but not really as a strategic partner in helping them envision the future of what they're going to do. The scholarship that you guys have come up with, like how amazing is that, right? To be able to seed new talent into AV, which we've all talked about is a problem, but how many organizations are bringing that forward besides, VIXA has one, I think NSCA has one, and you guys have one. I mean, those are the 3 most prominent ones I know about within the AV industry. So just looking at all these other ways to grow beyond just collecting a bunch of people together to have, like a club meeting once a month and share, share tales of misery and woe, that you guys really turned it into something that provides value, beyond the original intent. So anyways, that to me, I think has been the most surprising part about where you guys have gone, over the last couple of years.
It didn't matter to me. I don't think it matters had you succeeded, like I said, because it was something. How do I put this? I come from the background, obviously, in the pharmaceutical industry. Some of the greatest inventions in pharmaceuticals happened by accident. It won't happen today. Drugs that were discovered that cure and save lives today exist because of an accident, that something happened. Yep. They created a drug for something and they saw a side effect that worked for something else. It's harder to do that these days in the pharmaceutical world because of checks and balances and Six Sigma. And if it doesn't work, you got to push it and move it and shelve it and blah, 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 because it's not part of the directive. And that's kind of, the downside to where a lot of corporates go. They give up on things very easily. But in this case, you guys put together a group of people that are all chasing the same initiative. It wasn't going to fail, but if it did, you changed the way it worked. And that's the most important part. And if you're going to sit back and look at a legacy at some point of what HETMA means, HETMA could be its ultimate legacy is that it didn't follow the pattern or the rules, right? Some of the great rock bands in the world didn't give two craps of how things were done. Right. And I'm not saying that this is your Bohemian Rhapsody moment where you're arguing with record executives that this song is going to work and people are going to love it. And they could not see the value, of speaking in tongues in the middle of a song. But what I'm saying is that you guys are absolutely going to be remembered. Now I'm time hopping, right? Since we're all talking about some space age stuff here. Maybe I'm time jumping now to the next 3-4 presidents down the road and you both have emeritus, super grandy emeritus titles attached to you. But down the road, if what you did created a spark for the change and that it now opened up some opportunities for people to think differently, then yeah, that's my trippy hippie moment where I'm going to tell you that that it's been worth it. Yep. I look at it that way. And I hope you guys someday look back at this, sipping back on some cocktails and realize, you know what, we made a difference. Whether we like it or not, we made a difference. And it helped our vertical in the higher ed side. But at some point, maybe it sparks a different organization to form because you did it, they did it, we can do it. Yeah. And they're going to look at what you did and they're going to look at Joe's taunts and they're going to look at what, the marketing plan, which wasn't a marketing plan because I figured that's not a plan. And they're going to say, this is how we're going to do it. And you may have created the blueprint, which they're going to modify and change. So that if you ever get a question on Sunday that has to do with legacy, it could be your legacy is not, the actual organization, but the difference it made in the industry. And a lot of people don't like to talk about that because, man, that sounds too freaking important to be giving, acknowledgement to, 5 guys who did that. Right. Or 5 people who put together an idea. Right. It's like everybody who disrupted the news media. Right. Yep. Men and women who blogged in sweatpants at night became difference makers. Right. To the media. And it's proven that has happened across multiple industries. So be proud of that. And don't ever look back and say, did we do something that didn't matter? It did. So that's my future program. Like, can I call myself a futurist now?
You're now
you're a futurist now.
100% futurist.
Right, well, at least I've won you guys over. I am
there
definitely.
I'm almost going to tear up. So
don't tear. Don't tear. No need to cry.
I think one of the things you're talking about, Chris, when you're talking about impact too, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. So maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know how tight knit the university group of technology managers were before this type of organization. But when I look at people like, Will, who came out to USC, or I look at James King, who came out from New Jersey to Vegas, and I look at some of these folks who took on new roles, got new opportunities, I don't know that those people would have had access or known about those opportunities if there wasn't a group like HETMA that was connecting you guys in this peer group that allowed those borders to open up more. I see people taking their families to whole new cities and changing their lives in a way that is much more than just, I got a better deal on the Crestron gear that I wanted because we had a buying group, right? Like you're connecting people to opportunities across geography, it seems like, in ways that really unlock new potential for people. And I think that's been one of the cool things to see too, is just that migration of people through HETMA and using that network well beyond its original intent.
That can't change, because that's a major differentiator in the space. If you lose your community, right? And I know a thing or two about how to build that. You don't want to mess with your community, because that is your group. Those are your people. And I hate the word tribe, right? But Seth Godin, if you guys want a great book to read Tribes by Seth Godin. It's very well written and put together about the power of community and how that makes a difference, because one person can make a difference. Once you got two or three, those are multiple voices, and then that turns into a force. So it's important that stays at the core of your business plan, is don't let the community stray, because that's the strength. I mean, even in AV, there's strength in numbers when it comes to that sort of stuff. And if any type of real change is going to happen, it's because you recruited universities. And it didn't matter if they were the top 10 universities in the country. They were schools. And that is what attracted community colleges, universities, big universities, small universities, universities who just became universities from being colleges. All that kind of stuff is important. And you can't let go of the little person in that space, because everybody needs that voice. And that's where that's the attraction. That's the magnetism, is that if they come in, they now see strength in numbers, and there's opportunities there, not just from a buying power, because that can exist. I can create a buying group tomorrow and there's nothing there. It's empty. It's hollow, right? But a buying group that is now more of a community than just a buying group, now there's strength in that. There is not strength in the other way around.
Yeah, that's one of the, I think, the unexpected, I don't want to say unintended consequences, but one of these unexpected results. And I don't know if Joe had that in mind when this whole thing went off, 5 years ago. But, we were looking at, the buying power, or at least the voice of the manufacturers, things like that. The fact that folks, like, I always think of like James King is one that always comes to mind first, is like that dude got recognized for what he does and took a fantastic opportunity. Or I think about Britt Yenzer, like someone that's absolutely tearing it up right now. And HETMA helped, I don't want to say, helped expose who she was, right? Like, I don't know if she would have gotten that same.
They provided a platform, dude.
Yeah. The platform.
That's what communities do. They have town halls, and that town hall is where you, in a physical community, that's where you can go air your grievances and air who you are.
And
I mean, honestly.
And it's just worked. And I never, that wasn't on the roadmap anywhere. But it's, that's more fulfilling than any of the, the other things that we've been able to do. It's the fact that the community has been brought together, and I don't foresee that piece of it ever going away, even if HETMA goes away today.
And wait until the undiscovered person reaches their new voice. And then all of a sudden you're like, where did this person come from? And you give them that opportunity to speak. You give them their opportunity to air what they need to air. Because one of the things that we as an industry don't do is listen very well. There's been a lot of people that have had a lot of great ideas over the years, and a lot of people had some very good intentions to move forward and to help others and to build a stronger community. And for some reason, weren't given the opportunity, the platform, the stage. And there's a lot of that, that there's a lot of those stories in the industry. So don't be surprised that another voice will emerge. And then all you guys can do is nurture it and hope that that person who, finally has got the platform inside HETMA, that you're able to give them that platform that reaches outside, because that person may be, at a college in Midwest Indiana and feels that there's nothing that they can do to get a voice because Indiana and Indiana State are bigger universities or whatever that may
Mhm.
be. So you give them that and give them an equal playing field and respect for their voices. And I think that alone is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think about, Ryan Gray, our incoming vice chair. He's from
Yeah.
Yavapai Community College. Like
Prescott, Arizona.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He's not from like a top 20 institution. He's from a community college. And that to me is fantastic. I mean, I
It took
love
me 2 years to figure out how to pronounce his.
Oh, it took forever to learn how to pronounce it.
Yavapai. Yavapai.
Can I buy a Y and a vowel? Amazing.
But what's really awesome is how we are talking about names that we wouldn't have brought up 5 years ago, and
Or
we're
people we would have never
throwing
met.
them out right now, right? And saying and how that impacts. So that is, wow, this is awesome. I loved hearing that. I'm glad we've scheduled this. I know we also have some hard stops, but I want to ask one more question, and I have to because now we're. And this is more of an advice, and this is where do we go from here now? Okay, we're here. As you know, I mean, we're going to be turning over the reins. We got new chair and vice chair coming, and BC and I are going to be Statler and Waldorf, just sitting in there and heckling from the balcony moving forward. So what can you see, or what does what do you think the organization needs to do to be equally successful 5 years from now? Chris, I'll go to you on that one first.
5 years forward. I think I've already said what you guys need to do. You can't get away from what you can't get away from your roots, right? In the words of Axl Rose, where do we go, right? Where do you want to go with this? You cannot get away. And to me personally, I wouldn't get away from where it came from. That is, if you make that part of your core, right? You always got to stay punk rock. There's always a side of you that always has to say that they're going to come after us and they're not going to accept what we do. And if you keep that edge going forward through it could be your leadership, it could be your committees, right? You got to always expect that at some point, and I will give you a very good example of this, and I will name names and say what I need to say. But we came out of a pandemic, right? And we had all these great ideas. Never are we ever going to be in that kind of pressure cooker again. Businesses had to rethink how they did businesses. Marketing had to rethink how they marketed, right? Business plans had to get rewritten because the idea of parts moving, coming and going, and installs happening, on-demand stuff, everything had to get rethought of. And it did for 3 years. And now you can hear the squeaky wheels back, right? You can hear people going back to this is what we did before. And I'm feeling it and I'm seeing it. Things are changed. They're forever changed. And what you can't do is go back to the way they were. So always think that the forces are always going to be working against you, and that you got to keep reinventing, but staying true to where you came from. And remembering that no matter what, you're always going to be looked at as the end user. And there's always going to be that one, handlebar twirling guy who's going to be, after you and tie you to some train tracks, right? This is, it's the same crap over and over again. Please do not let leadership going forward tell them to constantly be looking over your shoulder, and that there are forces that are going to be working against you. But in order for this to work going forward, you still have to have that same punk rock appeal. And I think you will continue to draw people based on that. You have to differentiate yourself, right? You can't be like everybody else, and you don't want to be that. That is your identity, and that's what is going to carry you guys on. Now, what I hope going forward is that new and creative stuff is going to come out of it. As you pump new life and new blood into your organization, there's going to be multiple point of views, and adding diversity and different, viewpoints into the space is going to take what HETMA started as and help mature it and transform it into something that you guys honestly cannot foresee what's going to happen. And the beauty of that is that unknown is the best part, right? All you got to make sure is that the ship's rudder is still straight and that you're still heading down that path. And that is the only responsibility you're going to have. But hand the keys over to the young bloods and let them, add a new life to it, because it has to have that. It cannot grow stale. And there are organizations that are staler than 5-week-old bread, and they cannot figure this out. So please don't let yourselves get stale. Constantly reinvent and rethink, but stay true to your core. And I think you guys will continue to be successful. And I think that manufacturers on top of that will be more accepting of it, because they're going to look at you guys in a different light. And I keep saying you guys, but you folk as different organizations that want to see change for products and being specific to your vertical, which they've never, honestly have built things purposely for education. And you want to keep that at top of mind. So I don't see anything changing other than the infusion of new blood and new ideas. As long as you stay true to your core, you guys will be successful.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's a good comment, because it's easy for us now that we have all these initiatives and things that we do in relation to get, buried into that. And so to come back to what was it that created the initiatives, the community, and focusing on those and coming back. So I think that's great advice. You should build your own community one day on something. You should think about doing that, and Mark,
I got some time Sunday.
Mark, same question to you then. Where do we go now?
You know what? I'm gonna give a slightly different answer. I don't think you should lose anything that Chris said you should maintain. I think community is the core of what you've built, whether you meant to or not. I think, and it's been proven, even just by you tearing up a little bit, Joe, and thinking about people's lives that were changed through HETMA. That's great. And I think that always has to be, when you talk about the why, that's the why. And then what are we actually doing is really the question of this question. And I would say that in the same way that we're having to start to think about people, human-centered design, more and more out in every other vertical that we touch as AV, we're having to escape this idea of just technology in the places, right? And really start thinking about, why do people come to the places that we build, and how are we impacting the student, right? Or how are we impacting outside of our circle when we think about these concentric circles? So I'll throw something out. Maybe I'll be a prognosticator. Maybe you guys will take me up on it. Maybe you guys won't take me up on it. I don't know. But where did Netflix go once they built a streaming platform? They went to content. Mm-hmm. And, we have the ability today for universities to unlock these ivory towers of professors, subject matter experts, teachers from a campus, and really be able to spread that across more geography than ever before. So what about like a ghost theater? HETMA colleges have ghost theaters with a lecture series that HETMA curates with top professors and subject matter experts around the world. And you're selling content to your HETMA members that's being able to connect their students in wholly new remote lecture series ways, where you're getting world-class masterclass style education in these spaces that's curated by your group, by building an extended community of actual teachers, subject matter experts, et cetera, who are passionate about getting their message out beyond the university of what'd you say, middle Indiana, Chris? Is that what you're talking about?
Midwest Indiana State University,
right? Like,
Miami,
how do we do that?
Ohioville.
Is there a role with HETMA in doing that? And helping?
Joe doesn't want nothing to do with that, man. Come on, bro.
Helping unlock.
I've never thought of that.
Media,
but it is
campus technology and community building, and all of a sudden think outside of the classroom and curating the actual content that's coming into there as well.
Yeah.
Just a thing,
Send him the bill, Mark. Send him the bill.
I know he'll get his cut, his commission on every course signed up for. No, but I mean, it's funny because if you think about it, we started as a virtual conference, right? That was our first thing we ever did, where we do bring in our own speakers and we do kind of, quote unquote, as you said, curate the content to our people. We don't self-create it, but we bring it in. And then also, if you think now this year, we're doing a 2-day education summit at InfoComm and leveraging that. So I love the idea. Again, it kind of piggybacks off Chris, that is getting back into our community. Our community, what we do is education, right? I mean, yes, we're AV people, but we serve the education vertical. We serve customers who are professors. and staff and all of that. So there is a natural synergy in there as well. So I love that. Wow, this has been fantastic. So the final word. So the single most important question is how to get a hold of everybody. So BC, how do people get a hold of you? But also, you've now just listened to this conversation. Do you have any thoughts there after hearing Chris and Mark?
No, it's been fantastic to get their views on how everything has evolved over the past 5 years, because we've seen it from a micro level, right? Like we've been in the trenches and been working on things, and having a couple of folks that have seen it from a different side. It's that kind of brings it home, so to speak.
Yep.
Shows a more picture. But
and then people can find you by.
I'm on the Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days. It's just at BC Hatchett, and I'm also on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. And Mark, how can people get a hold of you?
LinkedIn, of course. I'm more active there than ever lately. I am on X as at AVPhenom, or if they want to figure out what we're up to, they can go to avispl.com and then with a / and then XTG for Experience Technology Group.
Yes, and I'll put that in there too, and say that AVISPL has been a wonderful partner of ours too, and a huge proponent of what we've done, and great relationship together. So we thank you, and everybody go. If you need an integrator, we've got a great one for you, especially with experiential stuff. All right, and Chris, how can people get a hold of you and connect with you?
I'm easy to get a hold of, but before Mark, call me. I think maybe we should do a show.
You should do something like AV Smackdown or something.
Yeah, that sounds like an interesting name.
Yeah,
we heard that somewhere before.
Never. Who would have thunk it, right?
No.
Maybe we should get together and talk about things like that, explore new things. Anyway, you can find me on X, Chris_Neto. That's where I am most active, unlike the rest of y'all. That's where I do my dirty work. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can also catch me monthly hosting Midwich Live, which is my live podcast that I do, or video cast with the Midwich team and Jenny Hicks out of the UK. I do that on a regular. I have a lot of things I'm always got something irons in the fire. But specifically, you can find me Sunday mornings on X hosting a talk show on X. I guess we'll talk about that. And it has a podcast coming soon. I have teased and hinted that it's there. 8 episodes are done. The only thing I have to do is cut it up, but I am bad with video. If you know anybody, you know my number. Give me a call. Joe, thank you so much for having me on the call, and appreciate it. It's been 5 years. It's been an interesting 5-year ride with you guys, watching it grow from left to right. I mean, aside from the wax poetic of me romanticizing how you guys have what you guys mean to the industry and stuff like that, do not get all mushy on me. You're not supposed to do that. But I do appreciate what you guys have done, and I do respect the fact that you guys have did something that others would have said no to. And I admire that, because we need a lot more people like that in this industry who are going to push the buttons and do things that are not what the other person would do or what somebody else thinks we should do. So please continue on doing what you're doing and keep on keeping on, man. That's what I appreciate.
No, thank you. And I do encourage everyone to join in the hashtag AV in the AM every Sunday. And thank you. Also, Staren has been a Staren.biz, I believe. Make sure and I got to learn the .biz part. And make sure to connect. And Staren's been a huge proponent as well, and sponsor, and just great partners. So I thank you. I thank you all. This has been fantastic. Great going down kind of memory lane with y'all. I can't wait to see how this continues to grow over the next 5 years and eternity, and look back and just see this organization become more of a life on its own. So thank you all. And as everyone knows, you can find me at Josiah Way on all of the socials, and of course find at HiredAV and HETMA_org. If you are in higher education, you know that HETMA is always no charge for you to join, and a special this month, since already free, but we're going to let you sign up 100 of your closest friends at no charge as well. So make sure you do that, right? As always, any of the opinions expressed here are not necessarily those of our respected institutions, any sponsors of the show, companies, or anyone else who might get mad at us and sue us. And if you do not like any of these opinions, There may be better ones next time.